Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhigyaswarat Tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayah Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra sargo mrisha Dhamna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amritadrava sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. We now enter the 87th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Bhagavatam. So Parikshit begins this chapter with a nice question. He addresses Shuka Brahmam and says, O great sage, it is said that the Vedas speak of the Supreme Being, Brahman, and yet we know that the Vedas can only describe the three gunas. And the Supreme Being Brahman is indefinable and beyond the three gunas and transcends both cause and effect. Therefore, how is it possible for the Vedas to describe the truth? So it's a very interesting and profound question, because whatever can be spoken through words can only describe the phenomena of the world. And if Brahman is the source of all the phenomena, the pure consciousness that abides as Satchit Ananda, it cannot be brought into the realm of words, because any word can only refer to a concept which is a phenomena appearing within consciousness. So he asks, Brahman, Brahmani anirdeshye nirgune gunavrittayah katam charanti shrutayah sakshat sadasatah pare. So that which is beyond cause and effect, that which is indefinable, that which is beyond all attributes, the Supreme Being, Brahman, how can it be described by the Vedas? So, Shuka Brahmarishi begins his response to this question by saying, the Supreme Being evolved all the various faculties such as the intellect, the senses, the mind, the energy, and the cognitive force, which is Jiva. All of this, and through these, one can realize the truth of the Supreme Being, and that is pointed to in the Vedas. And this is what is treasured by all the great sages. And therefore, if one truly gets into the profound secret of the Vedas, then this treasure that is buried in the Vedas can be unearthed, and great sages like Sanaka and others have done it. So now let me tell you an incident in which this particular dialogue happened, which addresses the exact question you are asking. And then he goes on to say that once Narada, the great sage, went to meet the divine sage Narayana. So, as we have seen, one of the avatars of Bhagavan is Nara Narayana, the twin sages who were in Badrinath, who are said to do tapas there for a long time. And Narayana, as the divine sage, is the supreme being, and therefore Narada goes to him and bows down to him with the same question. It says, Ekada Narado Lokan Paryatan Bhagavat Priyaha Sanatanam Rishim Drashtum Yayau Narayanashramam. So he went to the ashrama of Narayana, the sage Narayana, the immortal seer Sanatanam Rishi, to see him during his travels across the world. And he found him in this place which is called Badrinath, where he is engaged in great tapas for the sake of the whole universe. In the Bharat Varsha, that is in the land of Bharat, in the place which is known as Badrinath, he is engaged in great tapas, great austerity with self-knowledge and dispassion. So, bending low with reverence before this sage Narayana, Narada puts the exact same question, and Narada is being replied by Narayana as follows. He says, O Narada, I will tell you of a dialogue that happened between sages which are the four famous sons of Brahma, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, Sanat Kumara. And they in fact discussed this exact question. And in that assembly, this question was posed and the answer was given as well. And though they were all equal in their learning, in their ascetic powers, and in their virtues, they simply let Sanandana speak. And so Sanandana spoke, and Sanandana said that the Vedas themselves, which took a form, addressed the Supreme Being to reveal the very secret buried in the Vedas. And so Sanandana speaks by narrating the glorification of the Vedas in a personified form of the Supreme Being through which the answer comes. So it's a very nested dialogue. We saw Parikshit asking a question to Shuka Brahmam. Shuka Brahmam in turn relates a dialogue between Narada and sage Narayana to answer this question. And the sage Narayana in turn relates a dialogue between Sanandana and the other brothers, which addresses the same question. And Sanandana in turn relates a dialogue between the Shrutis, that is the Vedas personified, and Bhagavan. So the question is answered directly by Shrutis themselves, as reported by Sanandana, which is reported by Narayana, the sage, which is reported by Shuka Brahma Rishi. So the Vedas personified form, they start speaking, they address the Lord. It is said when at the time of Pralaya, that is at the time when the whole of creation is dissolved and there is nothing other than the Supreme Being who is in Yoga Nidra, in the transcendent sleep, with all the various potencies absorbed back in him. So it is said they glorify him and they say, O Lord, manifest your glory. Jaya Jaya Jahya Jama Ajita. They say, reveal your glory and bring forth, when you bring forth all the jivas, root out the ignorance in them, which is beginningless, because the ignorance comes forth through the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and thereby covers up their wisdom. So when you awaken the jivas, only by your grace, they can transcend the three gunas and realize your truth, because they go on to say the Veda is able to describe only you in conjunction with your divine energy Maya, and the wise recognize this universe to be none other than you. So when the universe is manifested, the Vedas say that it is none other than you who is manifesting as the universe through your own divine energy Maya. And it is so because you alone remain when the universe is dissolved, and from you alone the universe comes forth. Therefore, just as clay is the source of all pots, the pots, when they dissolve, they go back to clay, and when they come out, they also come out of clay. And even while they are pots, they are essentially clay. Similarly, the universe is coming forth from you, it is remaining in you, it dissolves back into you. Therefore, you are the material and the efficient cause of the universe, and therefore, the Vedic texts only refer to you whenever they contemplate with the mind or the tongue anything. So, whatever is described by the Vedas is none other than you. So, the one way to answer Parikshit's question is that even though directly one cannot speak of the Supreme Being, anything that we speak of is actually only referring to the Supreme Being. Here, a beautiful simile is given. Wherever we place our feet, we are actually placing it on earth. So, in other words, even when we place our feet on a floor in the 10th storied building or in a 100 storied building, or we are placing our feet anywhere, effectively we are placing it on earth, because everything is supported by earth. All the buildings, all the structures are supported by earth. So even if we directly do not place our feet on earth, indirectly we are always placing our feet on earth. Similarly, it is said here that even though directly we cannot speak of the Supreme Being, we are always only indirectly speaking of Him because everything is supported only by Him. Therefore, they say, O Supreme Lord, the wise simply plunge into the ocean of nectar in the form of your stories because that washes away all the impurities and removes all the sufferings. When one develops a taste for the stories, the pastimes, the teachings of you, whose nature is eternal consciousness and bliss, then naturally the false identification with the body as a separate being goes away, and all that is there is recognized as you alone. Therefore, those who recognize this live wisely, others are caught in ignorance. It is only your creative principle which brings forth cosmic intelligence, which brings forth even the ego, which brings forth this whole universe, which brings forth the five sheets in which the apparent jiva is encased. So the five sheets are known as Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya kosha. So each kosha is the bodily kosha is food. Then there is the energy kosha of prana. Then there is the mana or the mind kosha of mental sheath tendencies. Vijnanamaya kosha of the intellect, and Anandamaya of bliss. So all of these koshas, everything is permeated only by you, and you are the ultimate substance that underlies all the phenomena. Therefore, all the paths leading to God realization that are shown by various sages are all only leading to you. So, some then they describe the various ways. Some focus on the abdomen chakra called Manipuraka, some focus on the heart chakra called Anahata, some focus on the Sushumna Nadi that reaches to the crown of the head called Sahasrara. So, all of these yogic practices are there. All of these are focusing only on realizing you, because you alone have entered all the living organisms and you alone exist in them as their cause. And just as fire is present in all pieces of wood and it burns in different ways depending on the nature of the wood, similarly, you are present in every one. So, those who have their judgment not clouded, they are able to recognize you as the immutable, uniform substance in all the forms. That's why it is said that the Vedas speak of the Supreme Being as dwelling in all the bodies, even though you are not restricted by the bodies. In other words, in one sense, it is said that you are abiding in all the bodies. In other sense, all the bodies are abiding in you because all that is there is only you. And therefore, they go on to say that if one recognizes the truth of the Supreme Being, then that person is wise and he understands that your lotus feet, which is what all the acts enjoined by the Vedas are meant to realize, is the only refuge for ending suffering. Because all suffering comes forth only through not recognizing you as the only source of all. So, all the Vedas are essentially doing is recognizing you as the source and prescribing various actions to offer unto you. So, when one recognizes this, then one is free of this delusion. Those who are able to realize this, they dive into the ocean of your wisdom and recognize you as having assumed all the various forms and various avatars, and thereby that which is difficult to realize is made available to humans through your avatars. And therefore those who recognize this, they reveal the their the true wisdom is revealed in their hearts. And like swans, they are able to separate the false from the real and live in wisdom. Therefore, this human body, which is meant to follow the track leading to you, who is the only benefactor of all, if that's realized, then people live in happiness. Otherwise, if they don't lean towards you, if they don't recognize you as the supreme well-wisher and the love and the indwelling heart of all, then they, as it were, kill their own soul by getting attached to the body as me and thereby getting caught in fear and desire and so on. So, the easy way to recognize you is by constantly holding on to you as the supreme source, which can be done either by recognizing you as the all pervading energy of this universe, or as the indwelling spirit, or as the avatars that you have descended on. So they say there is no difference between even your enemies who have realized the same truth by constantly thinking of you. So we have seen the examples of Shishupala, Kamsa, and so on. And there is no difference between them and the ascetics who have controlled their breath and practiced yoga, because ultimately, anyone who is completely focused on you realizes you. The highest example of that being the cowherd women of Vrindavan, the gopis, who put their entire mind in you and thereby they recognize you. Therefore, they go on to say that withdrawing everything into yourself, you repose at the end of time, and then you bring forth from you everything again. So, all that is there is only you. So, people with all these various theories, some people say that the world did not exist and then it suddenly came up. Some people say that the world will one day end and there will be nothing after that. Some people say that there are many individual souls and you are separate, the individual souls are separate. There are some who say that everyone will reap the fruit of the actions according to their karma. So these are all corresponding to various schools, even in Vedic wisdom. So Vaisheshikas are there who posit that the world did not exist before and has somehow come into being as a product of matter. So this is very similar to the materialist view that the world somehow magically appeared as a product of matter. So that's Vaisheshika. The Nayayikas say that the world will one day completely cease to exist upon liberation. So they think the world is something that has to be transcended and it will completely cease to exist. There will be an ending of the world. Then there are Sankhyas who believe in diversity of souls. They think there are multiple entities and multiple souls and diversity of souls and so on. Then there are Mimamsakas who believe in karma theory, that the fruit of action is determined by the action. So all of these are misconceptions, they say. The Vaisheshikas, the Nayayikas, the Mimamsakas, the Sankhyas, everyone is caught in some misconception or the other, because the truth is you alone exist and the whole universe comes and goes as modification in you. So they give a beautiful example. They say, just as gold appears as ornaments, and even while appearing as ornaments, it's only gold. Similarly, the universe appears in you, and therefore the universe neither needs to be embraced as real nor needs to be rejected as unreal. Just as a gold ornament is neither considered to be separate from gold but not also same as gold, it is simply a modification of gold, and those who have the eye for it see only the gold. They are not caught in the form of the gold ornament, but they see the essence as gold. Similarly, the wise, the knowers of the self, they recognize this entire universe as real in its essence, because it is simply you alone who appear as this universe. Therefore, those who recognize this and see you only as the indweller of all created beings, they are free of the fear of death. Others are caught in the illusion of separative identification and thereby fear of death. Therefore, they say that just as various small rulers all offer tribute to the supreme emperor of the entire earth. So, if there is a supreme emperor who commands over the whole earth, let's say, or even a whole piece of land, and there are many small kings who are all under his control, and therefore they are acting as kings, but in reality, they are actually just ruling on the behalf of the supreme emperor, and then they just offer tributes to him. In this way, so this is given as an example of how all the various energies of this universe are all under your control. So there is the energy of the wind, of fire, of earth, of air, of thunderbolt, of lightning. There is so many various forms of energy that are there, which are all considered as various divinities, divine energies, and they are all offering tribute only to you and only partake of you, because all that is there is only you, and only your energy appears in all these various forms. And therefore, you are always eternally free and ever beyond Maya, and yet all the various beings, both mobile and immobile, who are endowed with a subtle body, are brought into existence by your own Maya. So you remain ever free of Maya, untainted like the sky, and yet from your own being, through your own Maya, comes forth all the various jivas, and these jivas are neither said to be separate from you nor said to be same as you, in the sense that they are, as already mentioned, gold and its ornaments. They are only modifications. If the jivas are said to be eternal and everlasting, then it will remove the omnipotency of you, because it will appear that they have a will that is separate from you, and therefore it would not hold water to say that the jivas are everlasting and separate from you. If we say that, on the other hand, the jivas are completely within you and they have no separate existence whatsoever, then that's also not entirely true, because it seems to be the case that there are many jivas who are apparently having separate existence. So the way to resolve this conundrum is through the same way as how gold ornaments are resolved into gold. Though there can be so many ornaments made of gold, in reality none of them are separate from gold, but they seem to be separate. Similarly, all the jivas, which is just the cognitive force that is present as each entity, each being, are only a modification of you, and you are unaffected, while all these various jivas come and go as modifications. And therefore, they say that the birth of Prakriti, that is the primordial matter, doesn't hold water because it is timeless, it is beginningless. So it is only a cyclical. So the world doesn't have any beginning, its cycle. It is without beginning, without end. It simply goes through creation, dissolution, only to be created again, and goes round and round. Just as there is no starting point in a circle has no beginning, no end. Similarly, this primordial matter, Prakriti, has no beginning, and all the living beings come into existence like bubbles on the surface of water, and they keep coming and going just as water bubbles form and unform. All the various jivas come and go with various names and attributes. Just as various rivers merge into sea, they also merge into you when you dissolve the whole universe. Therefore, it is only a misapprehension, that is, a false identification caused by your deluding potency of Maya, that makes people take themselves to be separate jivas eternally, when in reality there is nothing other than you. And therefore, those who have sound judgment, they develop intense devotion to you, and thereby they surrender everything, including their separation, to you. And such people are not haunted by any fear. They don't, not only they don't have any fear, they don't even crave liberation, because liberation or moksha or going to the eternal abode, as it were, are all only with the sense of separation. When the sense of separation is completely absent, then there is no individual entity seeking anything, including liberation. Everything is simply seen as your dance. It is your own will that projects all the various energies, and part of that is the energy of the human being as well, and it does its thing, and there is no fear of time. Whereas those who are caught in the separative identity, they are always afraid of time. And therefore, the one who is endeavoring to control the mind through various yogic practices, he is always finding it very difficult, because he is not recognizing this ultimate and essential truth, that there is no separate entity. The false assumption of being a separate entity is the root of all thoughts and all disturbances, and when they don't realize it, they are caught in this Maya. Therefore, the Vedas go on to say that one who is caught in this false attachment, he is caught in attachment to body, to the family, to wealth, to houses, and all the rest, and they are caught in this perishable attachments, which are not having any essential substance. Whereas those who have truly realized you, they are not having this kind of attachment. The true sages who are free of pride, who treasure only your lotus feet, they simply go about to holy places associated with exalted beings, and their mind is set only on you, the Supreme Self of everlasting bliss, and therefore they are not attached to the household, attached to attachments of various kinds. They recognize always that the universe is simply an appearance in you through Maya. It is just as how the other example given is how a rope seems to appear as a snake. Because of ignorance, the rope is seen as a snake, when in reality there is only the rope. Similarly, the universe seems to be separate and different from you only because of ignorance. When the ignorance is removed, then all there is only you, who are the supreme being. And whether the universe is perceived or not perceived is then immaterial, just as whether the gold is present as an ornament or not, it is still gold. Similarly, you alone exist whether it is perceived as the universe or not. Therefore, they say that since this world always keeps changing with nothing fixed in it, it's only an appearance, and it is similar to various examples, such as various pots coming forth from clay and going back to clay, or various ornaments coming forth like earrings and necklaces and so on, coming forth from gold and so on. So as long as we recognize that the various forms are constantly fleeting, changing, transient, but the essence is the same, then one is free. Therefore, under the influence of Maya, the one who embraces ignorance alone identifies with the body and thereby gets caught in false ideas such as transmigration and so on. But if one recognizes that you are alone the true presence in the hearts of all, then such a person is free. Otherwise, no matter how much one strives, you remain difficult to access, just as the gem on the neck of a man is forgotten by him. So it's another beautiful example where if one is wearing a gem on his neck, but he's searching for the gem everywhere, he will never find it because it's there on his neck already. And therefore, the only thing that needs to be recognized is that he is already wearing it and not keep looking for it everywhere. Similarly, we looking for happiness, looking for peace everywhere without recognizing that it is our very nature. We are already wearing it as it were. So that's the recognition that the essence of our own being and the essence of everyone and everything there is the Supreme Being. And when that essence is recognized, like one wearing a gem recognizes the gem is already with him forever, then the misery caused through having lost the gem, which was only an illusion, goes away. Just as one who has lost the gem he thinks while he was always wearing it, and then regains it and feels very happy even though it was all along with him only. Similarly, the one who takes himself to be a separate entity, looking for God, looking for truth, looking for happiness, when he recognizes his very nature is that, then he is happy. Otherwise, one can take to any yoga, any kind of practices, any kind of sadhana, and all of that will only keep him in a merry-go-round. Therefore, this is the easy way, the direct way, and when one recognizes it, then there is no impact of joy and sorrow, of pleasure and pain. Everything is seen as one and the same. There is no injunctions either. None of the Vedic injunctions apply to such a person who has realized, because all of these Vedic injunctions of do's and don'ts are only for those who are identified with the body, so that they can purify the ground of their being to realize the supreme truth. But one who has realized it, for him there is only the natural intelligence of being which guides him. He doesn't need any external injunctions. Therefore, the one who has ushered into his heart through the years the truth of the teachings that has come down attains true beatitude through this recognition. And this recognition is what the Shrutis talk about. And even though the Shrutis cannot describe it fully because it is infinite in nature, this is the essence of the Shrutis that is pointing to this truth. So we see this beautiful description come to an end, which we can see how only through negation and also through a sense of total surrender, the Shrutis declare the truth of the Supreme Being as the essence of all that there is. So Parikshit's question is thereby answered, that while the Shrutis speak of material phenomena, it speaks of the material phenomena as nothing but a modification of the Supreme Being, and thereby point to him through the phenomena as the source of all phenomena. So this dialogue is now completed, and then the sage Narayana, the divine sage, concludes to Narada by saying, this is what was uttered by the Vedas as an exposition, which was in turn given by Sanandana to Sanaka and all the other brothers who paid their respects to Sanandana, and thereby everybody attained quiet, peaceful realization in their heart, and that is in turn being narrated to you by me, O Narada. So now hold this in your heart and you will be free of any doubt. So hearing this, Narada was very happy. received it with reverence, and offered his obeisances to the great sage Narayana, who is none other than Krishna, and now with Narada, with his mind completely cleared of all doubts, with these teachings firmly established in him, he offered a beautiful prayer. He says, Namastasmai Bhagavate Krishnaya Amalakirtaye Yo Dhatte Sarvabhutanam Abhavayo Shati Kalaha. He says, O Krishna, he addresses the divine sage Narayana, but he is Krishna himself. So he says, O Krishna, I offer my obeisance to you, the one who removes the false idea of separation and thereby transmigration. In this way, he bows low to the sage Narayana, offers his obeisances, and then he leaves, and then Narada goes to the hermitage of the sage Vyasa, who is Dvaipayana, and teaches the exact same message to Dvaipayana. And the sage Vyasa, Dvaipayana Vyasa, he's called Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, he in turn learned this teaching that was given from the sage Narayana to Narada. Vyasa learned from Narada, and Vyasa in turn taught it to Shuka Brahma Rishi. So Shuka Brahma Rishi says, this is how I learned it, coming from the succession of Narayana to Narada, Narada to Vyasa, Vyasa to me. And therefore now I teach unto you, O Parikshit. So simply meditate on the Supreme Lord Sri Hari, who alone is the wielder of whole of Maya, and yet who is unaffected by Maya, in whom the whole universe has its beginning, middle, and end, who is beyond both Prakriti and Jiva, and who becomes this Prakriti and Jivas and controls them, maintains them, dissolves them as well. He is the only truth, the only substrate, the only reality there is. Therefore, simply meditate upon him and be free. So, this is how Shuka Brahma Rishi concludes his beautiful teaching to Parikshit, addressing his very beautiful question as well on the nature of the truth and how it is clarified in the Vedas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.